You guys hear me? Hello. Welcome. We have made it. We are here. Hi, dog. You're looking at me very quizzically. You're like, what are you doing, human? What are you doing? Hello. How is everyone doing? Okay, I am so glad that this worked because it's been a long day. I tried to set up a new version of the doggo camera, and I don't know if maybe it's just too high technology for me to be able to figure out. Because this one I just it's basically a webcam. It is a webcam. I just plug it in and then it just works. Like, it's just there. The new one I got, apparently too fancy for me. Couldn't figure it out. I wanted to do a custom light pattern for the lights in the background, and I can't seem to get that app to work either, so it's a long day today. Long day, but glad we're here. Glad we made it. Everything is working. So happy everything is working. How is everyone's Friday going? What is everyone up to? Just give me the 411. Yeah, it is quite the light show. I have, actually, I can do like solid colors. I know the flashing lights maybe aren't good for everyone. I don't know if this is like can somebody, I'm not informed. So if this is like something that could potentially be like a seizure trigger, I'm happy to change it to solid colors, but I do not have, I thought I was going to be able to make it so it would go like red, green, white, red, green, white. And I can't seem to like get it to do that. I got fancy Amazon lights, and I bought these same ones last year, and they were totally different, and they had different settings and everything. And this one I can do DIY colors basically. That's about it. I can make it be like whatever like rainbow color I want. I can have it be all different shades of green. I can have it be all different levels of brightness. So like I can't customize it. I can't seem to figure out how to make it as it was sold to me. I cannot seem to make it do what I actually want it to do, which is like full on custom mode. I don't know. So, whatever. That's just what's going on with my technology, in case anyone was curious about that for some reason. Of course, now I think I've screwed myself. I don't know if I can get back to what I had it before. I can, like, do individual lights, which is kind of crazy. Like, I can just, like, pick some random ones. Look at that. Isn't that nuts? Like, listen, you said you wanted custom. We'll give you custom. We'll give you custom. I think it's just a lot of visual stimuli, which makes it hard for me to focus, but that's me. Yeah, I know, especially with the snow and everything, there's kind of a lot going on. I also changed the backgrounds. the background image because I wanted something. Like, I just found this on Google and I was like, oh, that's cool. So stick with that one. So yeah, I think for now I just do the solid color, and then maybe I will be able to figure out how to make this rainbow fun colors. Solid is less distracting. I would like it if it was a very slow fade. I think that would look good. That would be fun. I feel like if it's like very fast lights, that works well for if, I don't know, you're gaming or something, but all right. People doing donuts in the parking lot as always. Like I have a whole, and I showed this yesterday, but there's literally like a whole packet instruction booklet that came with it, and what it says I should be able to do in the instruction packet is completely different from what I get in the actual app. So I don't know, maybe you just got hoodwinked by Amazon. That's a distinct possibility. I love seeing all the lights and the snow falling too. It looks really nice and lovely. I love doing like the Christmas seasonal stream stuff. And I've wanted to do ones for Halloween as well. I just haven't like gotten around to setting up. Christmas is like the big one. But I would love to do more seasonal stuff in the future for sure. It looks like Blade Runner back there. I guess in a way, sure. Would it maybe be nice to set custom red, green, white zones or red, green, gold? That's probably not work to be done stream. That's what I wanted to do. I think maybe if I just had it be solid lights, it just kept it like this. Even if I couldn't do a slow fade, I could do like vertical panels of like red and green. And then there's a yellow. There's obviously like gold isn't really an option, but I could do like a warm white color. Well, glad you could make it back, Scarlet Star. It has been an interesting couple of weeks. Last week we really struggled to go live because everything decided to update itself all at once, and OBS and YouTube were not having fun together. So had a little bit of a rough time getting the stream started last week, but we're here, we're back. I just wanted something that was different from like just the standard plain white lights to reflect the season. If I could just have sparkly lights year round, I would be very happy with that. But I can't seem to find sparkly curtain lights on Amazon. That's not a thing that seems to be made. How's it going with you? It's a long day today. Had like early morning doctor's appointments, and then spent a lot of time today trying to get this stream set up and finishing up like house decorating. And it just like, I can't believe it was already 6. Like I feel like even though I was up like early this morning, it just went by super fast. Like I feel like it went from like 8 a.m. to 4 in like no time at all. I feel like that my sense of time has really changed over the last couple of years. Maybe a couple of years ago, I would have had the sense that time was moving very slowly, and it's like, oh, it's so long. But now I just feel like every single day it's like I have so much to do and I can never do all of it, and every day just goes by super fast. So I very rarely have a day now where I'm like, oh, today took forever, it was so long. Like it always just speeds by, which, you know, I think I'd probably rather have the issue of days going by too fast than too slow. Okay, so I don't even think I got to do this last time, so I will just do a quick little overview for people that are maybe newer, haven't been here in a while. This is an interactive Q&A stream. This is meant for people that are 18 and over, so if you're at least 18, please don't be here. And we basically hang out and we talk about kinky stuff, holiday stuff, because it's that time of the year, the intersections thereof, I suppose, as well. Also, polyamory, social media happenings, relationships, dating, asexuality, queer issues, all of that good stuff. Obviously, the big talk of the town currently is H. Bomber Guy's new video and plagiarism and James Somerton and queer media, and I think all that is very fascinating. And I can only talk about it for a long time because I feel like ever since that new H-Bomber Guy video came out, there's just been like more and more stuff happening. Like I know Philosophy Tube released a video today that, as far as I know, is unrelated. It's just a different situation that's more personal to her. But there's been a lot of talk about it. It's been a big thing, which I've been waiting to see happen on social media for a long time. Because for years, I've noticed that there are lots of YouTubers where their whole videos that are supposedly about like deep dives on a murder case or some historical happening or some person that's really famous, like their deep dive is really just, I read the Wikipedia page, like no literally, but I'm actually reading the Wikipedia page to you. And people just eat that up. Like people are like, yes, mommy, read me read me the Wikipedia page. And I didn't realize how popular it was. I thought it was maybe one or two content creators that were doing that, but it seems like a lot of them are. And I don't know about anyone else here that is maybe still in school or has made YouTube content before or does anything related to this, but my favorite part of the process is definitely the writing and research part of that. Like if I could shorten any part of the process, it would probably be the filming portion of it. And I keep meaning to start using a teleprompter because I actually have one and I think it would really improve my videos. Like since watching the H-Bomber Guy video, I am so motivated right now to just like overhaul everything in like my whole life. Just like overhaul my whole life, organize everything, make everything better. I'm like, oh, I just want things to look better and I want things to be easier to make. Like, and it sort of made me feel better where I'm currently at already making YouTube videos because for people who don't know, James Somerton was this YouTube content creator that made queer media analysis through the lens of being a white cis gay man. And he had a lot of misogyny baked into a lot of what he would say. And I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of his. I watched a couple of his videos, but there was something about them that seemed very slick. And he just seemed to be a little bit, like, prissy is the word that comes to mind. Like, just sort of like, ugh, the straight people. All these straight women, how dare they? And it's like, well, I'm not in this fandom, so I don't know. But that kind of seems like I definitely know from, like, Tumblr and, like, fan fiction stuff that, yeah, they can be cringe, but also, like, maybe we don't have to just keep making everything women's fault. So, anyways, he made queer media analysis videos, and he would put out like 2-hour-long videos every week, which is like I make, like, at this point in my career, I make like 2 half-an-hour long videos. Like I make 2 like 20 to 30 minute long videos, but they're very plain Jane. Like they don't really have a lot of visuals in them. Obviously just me sitting in front of a camera. I was thinking, oh my god, how can this one person be making content that is objectively so much better than mine, but then also is twice as long and has all these visuals and quotes? It turns out everything he was making was just plagiarized from books, like literally just copy and pasting entire chapters of books basically to make into YouTube videos. And then the parts that were actually his were parts where he would like rant against women and the straight women, they're ruining the media. It's like, okay, buddy, sure. Like definitely gives me the vibe of somebody that maybe did not have a great friendship with straight women growing up, or maybe like a sister, or I don't know, just something happened there that really affected him for the long term, and it came out in his work very obviously. So it was unfortunate, but it made me feel, I was like, oh, that's why. It's because he just downloads plugin effects and then just uses those and then passes them off as his own creation, and then all he has to do is sit and read a teleprompter. Like, oh, okay, that's why. Okay, now that makes sense to me. Now that makes sense. And it was really eye-opening. I'm like, wow, how many other like big or just popular content creators are making content like that? Because I'm sure it's not just in the queer media space of people copying from books. It's going to be a lot of people. So moral of the story is, please don't, like, I'm just surprised because I I had the fear of God put into me about plagiarism, like from middle school, like, but definitely by college. Like, I know not everyone gets to go to college, or they go to community college, which maybe has different standards from a university. I don't know. I've never been to a community college before. I was basically told that I was ever caught plagiarizing once, I would I would be expelled, and then I would never be able to finish a degree anywhere. And so obviously it's very high stakes for not even getting close to it. And of course I didn't have AI when I was going to school, and we had to like turn it in, and we had other ways of checking for plagiarism. But even just like knowing I had written something that was original, and then seeing a turn it in report like flag sections I know I had written myself, like as like potential plagiarism, like no, I wrote that, like like I'd freak out about it all the time. And I'm just like, oh, these YouTubers are just like making pretending they know things when they clearly don't. And they're just like, if you're gonna copy from a book, at least know what's in the source material. Anyways, I need to get that out there because it's something that really bothers me. And I'm not saying that YouTube should have, like, can you imagine if YouTube had a built-in, like, turn it in feature? Like, where they scan your video for monetization, and then they have a secondary scan where it's for plagiarism based on the text of the transcript of the video. I don't think that should be the solution, but there probably should be some kind of something for plagiarism, because there's so, like, even in more mainstream YouTube content creation, that people who do like challenge videos or tech reviews or game reviews or any of that stuff, like there are people who have 5 million subscribers that look at a video somebody with 10,000 subscribers made and go, oh, that's a cool idea, and they literally copy all of it, like the whole video, the thumbnail, everything, and they post it, and they get 50 times as many views and like, you know, sponsorships and everything else. And it's like, I mean, that's why it's hard to break into YouTube these days. It's because the elite of YouTube, which I am very far from, you know, is more cloistered. And if you don't get big enough quickly enough, your potential audience will be eaten away by the people that will just see your videos that are already bigger than you, that just steal all of your good ideas and take eyeballs away from you. So anyways, I thought all that was like very, very interesting YouTube stuff. I definitely recommend checking out H-Bomber Guy's video. There are some occasional fun little like kink references in the video. There's one bit where he refers to pro-doming as a skill and has on a latex glove. And it's like, oh, well, we're getting spicy. I think, honestly, he probably did that to a vice signal to his audience about, like, hey, like, I'm fine with this stuff. And later in this, I'm about to critique somebody that talks about queer representation, just to make sure the audience knows that he's, like, on board with stuff like that, because he's generally not been on the up and up. Well, I appreciate that you think I'm an elite quality YouTuber. I honestly, I have what I hope are realistic goals for a YouTuber. I want to make my videos better. I want to, like, not necessarily change everything that I'm doing, but I want to do what I'm currently doing, but make a better version of it. And I think it'll probably really be helped by me using a teleprompter as opposed to what I normally do, which is I have the Google Doc of my text open on my phone, and then like I have to remember what I'm saying, like basically a paragraph at a time, and then I end up ad-libbing a whole lot, and then I get lost on where I'm at on a page, and then I have to stop and scroll, and then like I cough, or my dog moves, or there's a big noise outside, and then I have to cut things, and then I forget where I'm at, and then I have to randomly restart somewhere else, and then I can't like cut things together easily. It's a very ad hoc process because I have no professional knowledge whatsoever in anything related to like video editing or film production or like sets or lighting or anything. I'm going to try to make things better. So I just feel very inspired. I'm having sort of like an early spring cleaning feeling, but towards just like YouTube. But in order to get to that space, I have to like get through what I've already currently been working on and already needs to be edited and have thumbnails made, and like I want to get to a point where I'm like fully ahead and everything up already done. And then after that, like, okay, clean break, maybe January, just like make better stuff, like finally get stuff finished for new channel art and like a new ending screen and maybe like a little bit of a musical intro or something. I don't know. Like, I have ideas, but clearly, if you have really good visuals, even if you don't know what you're talking about, people like, and I'm not saying I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems like in general on YouTube, I didn't realize how much snazzy visuals could draw people in, and I'm like, okay, maybe we need to reevaluate the level of, because also like a big for. I feel like I'm just ranting about myself, but like I'm trying to wrap this up and then we'll get into answering questions. But just because I don't like I wouldn't make a video about this, so it's nice to have a place to talk about it. But for years, like the vast majority of my time on YouTube, the first little bit it was on YouTube, the first 2 years, I maybe in 3 years, I could look back and see it was definitely, it was more than a year. It was less than 4. So like 2 or 3 years, I was using just a webcam rested on the top of my laptop. And then I was recording directly to my laptop, and then I was editing everything in Windows Movie Maker. You can imagine the robust level of editing I was able to achieve with that technology. And then eventually upgraded to using a regular camera, and I got a Lumix G7, and I've used that for a long time. However, it is very bad at focusing. And I get comments from people being like, oh, use manual focus, use face detection, use this. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is something that everyone who knows anything about DSLR cameras and Panasonic, everyone knows that their fucking focusing system is garbage. Over the years, I had tried every different possible combination of focus type, tracking, manual, autofocus, some kind of hybrid thing, a secret third category of focusing. I had tried everything and like nothing would work. And it made it so I couldn't have anything in the background of my videos. Like, I had to keep my background very, very plain, because if I had a lamp or a candle or anything shiny or reflective, anything that flickered at all or like reflected something on it, even if it wasn't meant to be reflective, but if it was just like the metal of a door handle, that would be enough for it to defocus and like be like, oh, that's a face. It's like, no, it's not a face. So I didn't want to do anything crazy with my sets, because obviously I wouldn't want to make a really interesting background and then have my face be out of focus every 5 seconds, because it keeps just going in and out of focus to be like, ooh, shiny, ooh, reflective. So now I finally have a new camera, and I've been testing it out. I've been using it for the last little bit, and it seems to be doing a lot better. I filmed with it twice now. I originally wanted to start filming in 4K, and I don't think I'm going to do that. I did not realize how massively bigger 4K video files are. Like, literally 10 times as big, which makes everything else take 10 times as long. And I don't think the increase in quality is worth it. I mean, unless y'all have strong opinions about 4K, in which case, do you really want to see my videos in 4K? Would it really make that much of a difference? Let me know and I'll consider it. But I don't have the option. I think I'm going to stay in 1080p, but I haven't had any focusing problems with it. So I might actually be able to make an interesting background now and like have a background that's not just my closet door. So that'll be fun. So anyways, that's sort of my things going on currently, my updates, just feeling very motivated to do things, but also like overwhelmed with holiday stuff and like just, oh, there's just so much to do every day, just so much to get done. I'm trying to stay hydrated. Thank you for the reminder. I'm where am I at? I'm almost at my 6 p.m. So I've kept track today. If you guys haven't seen this water bottle before, it has fun little phrases on it. Rise and energize. Awaken your thirst. Awaken your thirst is my favorite. I love that one. Cool your core. Halfway there. Every sip counts. You got this. And then hydrate and celebrate. And I always end up waiting until about 4 p.m. and then I drink like half of this in like 20 minutes. So I'm not good at drinking it out evenly throughout the whole day, but I do normally get to drink it. I got this, did I get this on, I don't remember if I bought this from Amazon or where I got this, but it's a Takia, It is plastic. I would prefer it if this was glass, but they didn't have one that was glass this size and clear and like other things. So it is plastic, which is not great, but I use it all the time. I love it. It has definitely helped me keep track of my water intake. This is a big thing I did last year, and I'm not perfect about it, but I at least will get through one of these most days, which is a really big improvement for me versus just randomly drinking water from different sizes of bottles. So if your New Year's resolutions include drinking more water, or if you have a power hinge relationship that involves drinking a certain amount of water, this is a great thing because you can see there's marks on it. You can literally take pictures and send it to people and they can see exactly how much you've had to drink, and there's a timer on it too. Obviously, if you don't wake up at 8 a.m. or if you wake up at 5, like this is maybe going to be a little bit off for your daily schedule because I know not everyone's up until 8 p.m. You know, we all have different sleep and, you know, work schedules, but this is really good. I love it. It's great stuff. I wish I could be trusted with a glass water bottle. I am welder, so I can't have it around my booth. Oh, sure. Yeah. It has really good. It's over. Also, I like it because I can bring it if I go to a sauna or a spa. I don't have to worry. Like, cause usually saunas and spas, you're not allowed to bring in glass. So this is nice to have also for pool and sauna and spa usage as well. Is that like a normal side effect of lithium? Does it make you like really thirsty? You had to drink so, or just like you have to have that much water a day? I don't know if I could physically fit just even a gallon of water in my stomach. I don't think that, I don't even know how I would do that. I would only be consuming water. I would literally probably have to have an IV. It would be the only way. Is it? Oh, I had no idea. Wow, okay. I mean, okay, like lithium is an important drug for people to have access to. I had no idea. Good to know. Okay. Also, like, honestly, great information for me for scene stuff because I know people have a lot of, just to maybe rope this back into talking about BDSM at some point, a lot of people have a worry about talking to partners or potential partners about like medications or medical history or illnesses or conditions. And every year I hear some story about a scene going wrong because a bottom didn't think that they needed to tell their partner about their inhaler or their latex allergy or their like that they have type 2 diabetes or they have hypoglycemia or whatever. And it's just good to have a mental list of like things I should double check about because it could definitely impact the course of a scene. Like, for example, like if somebody was curious about latex, but then they also were on lithium, like one thing about latex is it makes you sweat a lot. Like it's basically a sauna that you wear on your skin, and you'll be like, I actually don't really wear latex that much because I don't really like the feeling of sweat or like how it smells. I love the concept of latex. Everything about wearing it, putting it on, is disaster. Like it's so much work, but it might be an important thing to know about. Like if you're on a medication that involves, you know, a high amount of water intake, it's definitely a factor. You need to talk about medications and stuff. A lot of meds are blood thinners. Yes, exactly. And that's not even necessarily something people would think, oh, I'd bring it up if I was doing a blood play scene. But like you can accidentally break the skin, like you could get a splinter from something, you know, accidents happen and it's good to know what you're walking into. Yeah. Yeah, the antipsychotics and lithium also, like I heard about the weight gain side of it because there was something, I don't know if that was something I learned about in a psych class or if that was something on the internet I saw, but like it's like, yeah, antipsychotic medications are very important and they're great, but also they will make you gain a ton of weight. And I'm like, note to self, good to know. Oh, it affects your electrolyte balance. That's a good point. I don't really talk about my stuff and what I have going on in this channel because I just don't want that information on the internet. But I have taken a medication before where I've had to watch my potassium intake. And that's like a weird thing you don't think about. And like, oh, I have to watch specifically this one thing that normally would be good, right? But it can cause imbalances. And it's not like, it wasn't like super serious or anything. It was more like, just be aware. Like maybe don't like have a multivitamin. Just like check how much potassium's in there, if there is any at all. Just, you know, you don't want to end up having weird side effects as a result. You forgot there are more states. Everyone's in Indiana. Actually, I would be very curious if I could do a map of like where in the country has the most kinky people in it. But then also, in order to make it accurate, you have to do it on a per capita basis. Because if you just did it in absolute terms, it obviously would be like California, New York. I'm not sure what would be third after that. It might end up. I actually don't even think Miami's that kinky. I don't like. I'm not sure what is, because obviously there's be probably Southern California and then Northern California if we were counting them separately. It might be Seattle. Could be DC. Could be the Beltway area. Might actually be DC. DC has a lot of kinky folk in it, which surprise people. People that like working for the government, like Power Exchange. You would have guessed. But, like, they have a lot of, like, especially East Coast, has a lot of, like, older kink societies that have a level of continuity to them. Where do you get a water bottle like that? You can get these on Amazon. This is a very common brand. It's called Takia. Or, I actually don't know. It's Takea, Takia. I think it's Takia. I did phonics as a kid. I should know how to say these things, but also companies break phonics rules all the time to make weird pronunciations of words, so... You know, that's a thing. But you can get this on their website. I've seen these. If there's anything that's like an REI or like an outdoor store near you, they will sell this or a very similar brand to it. I've even seen people will, if you can't get something like this, people will reuse like gallon milk jugs or like liter soda bottles. Like you can make something very similar to this with, you know, DIY stuff, just upcycling. All kinds of options. They're all hooked on phonics. That's the real drug of choice, phonics. Oh, Chicago! I was thinking about the Midwest, and I was like, where in the Midwest would have a lot of kink stuff at? And for some reason, I just forgot Chicago existed. I'm very sorry, Chicago. I've heard you're a lovely city. I've been there for like 5 seconds. I was very briefly in Chicago at an airport. That was about it. I went to a convention that was in Chicago, but by in Chicago, we mean at a hotel like outside of the Chicago metro area. So I went to a German restaurant when that was my only exposure to the outside world of anywhere near Chicago at all. Is Chicago like a good place to go visit? Like I've had people in my life that have gone there before, but they haven't gone there for kink reasons. So I have no thing. Like I feel like my idea of Chicago in my head is a very like romanticized, like winter, snow, like big city. I don't know. Maybe that's totally off base. Oh, Chicago pizza. I'd be worried about vegan food. Would there be vegan food there for me? Do salads exist in Chicago? The aquarium is famous. Oh. I've been to so many aquariums though. Like I'm like, I like the ones here. I would go if they had different stuff, but I like the ones here because they're very like a lot of them are based on like local Pacific wildlife. I don't know, what would you put in an aquarium in Chicago? Would it be stuff from the Great Lakes? Is it like I'm just trying to imagine like flying fish in from like the Atlantic and then just putting them in Chicago. They're just like, oh, this plane has a special delivery for the Chicago Aquarium. Chicago is awesome. Almost everywhere will seem lacking compared to Portland when it comes to vegan food. That's true. I've heard Atlanta has a really good scene. Honestly, I think Atlanta, like if I'm going to go somewhere in the US, Atlanta is probably next on my bucket list. Because I grew up in the Southeast. I never went to Atlanta though. and I've heard it has a great community there. There's events there. Like, I would go somewhere for an event. I know IML is in Chicago, so I could go there for that. But I feel like the dates that overlap with something else I normally go to. So think about that. Where I live, St. Louis used to have a quite large and lively kink scene. It still's an okay one, but it's gone through a dip for a bit. Yeah, I know some people that are in the St. Louis kink scene. Gotta admit, not heard great reviews of the St. Louis kink scene. I'm not gonna share any sort of like personal information about that, other than I've heard it has a relatively common issue, which is not a lot of diversity at leadership level making decisions. A lot of people are like, oh, back in my day kind of mentality, maybe ruining the better parts of it. I used to live 10 minutes from the Mexico border. That would be the worst for vegans. It's all meat and cheese. That would probably make sense. I feel like, if I was in California, I think if I was near like San Diego, the closest to the border. I've never been to California other than San Francisco. I've never been to like Southern California before, so I am not up to speed on the geography there. I think it's San Diego is the closest. I feel like San Diego would probably have an amount of vegan scene that would be tolerable for me to travel there for like a long weekend. I was actually surprised when I was in San Francisco, there were not nearly as many vegan options as I was expecting. That actually was disappointing. It was a lot harder to find like vegan food in SF than it was in Portland. Like in Portland, I can go into basically any neighborhood and there's like 5 vegan options at least. It's a little messy. It's a little messy how many different vegan places there are trying to choose where to get food. The OSC I've heard the most bad things about is LA. That's also what I've heard. I mean, I think you got to think about the kinds of people that are attracted to live in LA. Not to say anything of LA natives. Like if you're from LA, can't help where you're from. But the kinds of people I think they're attracted to the LA scene, it maybe draws in a certain personality type that I cannot imagine is friendly to certain ideas about consent and inclusion. And I'm sure it's getting better. But there was a news story of there was some celebrity that went to a BDSM club in LA, right? It wasn't not NXIVM. There was some other what was that? Celebrity LA. This is going to get me weird search results, isn't it? Not Sanctum. It wasn't a Sanctum thing. It was something, I actually have a video I made. Here's a little inside scoop for y'all. So there is a basically Eyes Wide Shut inspired private members club called Sanctum that, as you can see, says it's the world's most exclusive members only club. And I made a video about it that never got published. It's on Patreon. It's a couple years old. It was during that time when I was moving out of my ex's house and moving into my apartment. It was in that chunk of videos that I never released because, like, I didn't want to release videos while I was in the process of like grieving that relationship that were like filmed in that house. Like, it just felt weird. So that got released on Patreon along with a video that's like what else? There was like body care and grooming tips, the Sanctum video, and what was the other one? There was a secretary review, which I thought was a great video. I would love to be able to re-release the secretary review video, because I think that took me so much work, and I fought YouTube for like a month on the monetization and releasing that, and like the timing ended up not working out, unfortunately. But yeah, like straight rip that name style, not a good look. Oh yeah, because it is like NXIVM, right? Like you guys have a little bit of a NXIVM vibe with the name, but also it just generally is like sort of that era of like apps, you know? That's what it reminds me of. No, I saw it. It's disappointing. I have spent an inordinate amount of time trying to block every possible derivation of that word from everything that I can, and I thought that I had gotten all of them, and apparently I had not. So that's sad. Yeah, just a reminder, not be weird and creepy. Yes, thank you. Do not make this weird for me, please. I'm having a fun time. We want to have a fun time. We want to hang out. We're all here. So, you know, let's keep the vibes in a good place. But anyways, there is. I think when I get to a good place with maybe producing videos at a higher level, I will remake my video about Sanctum. But it is a couple years out of date, and I am very curious to see where it ended up, because at the time when I was originally like filming stuff for it, it had changed hands. Here, I'll just show you guys. Well, I get in trouble with YouTube if I do this. Oh, here, this is just very, very banal. I won't get in trouble for this one. So this is like the vibe. This is the vibe. Also, please ignore all the thumbprints on my phone. I clean it regularly, I promise. But this is the energy of the venue. Just imagine this, but with less clothing, and you basically got it figured out. Also, wintry Christmassy nail polish. So, yeah, it's very Eyes Wide Shut. It's very BDSM for people that hate BDSM. So I describe it uncharitably. People whose idea of BDSM comes from Honey Burdette advertisements and like thinking it's for rich people, I guess. It's a unique form of cringe that can only be experienced by people that are in the kink community. If you look at this, like, I think if you're an outside person who doesn't know anything about kink at all, you look at this and be like, wow, it's so luxurious. Look at all these hot women. And it's all like, just imagine like 100 posts in a row of skinny white women in lingerie in like provocative poses wearing blindfolds. Just like 100 pictures of that. And then that's what Sanctum is. And it's so fascinating to me, because there's like Armie Hammer was reportedly somebody who attended one of these events. There have been many rumors about very big celebrities going to these parties. Armie Hammer, I think, was even photographed at one of the parties. So, you know, that's great. But they've done a lot of promotion of it. Honestly, I do kind of wonder if they have some kind of like ad deal with like Honey Burdette, because I feel like all this lingerie is just like, I just keep scrolling and I'm like, am I on the Sanctum Instagram page or the Honey Burdette Instagram page? Where am I at? So anyways, that's maybe something I want to revisit in the future, because I think deep diving about it could be very interesting, because there's a lot of background with the owners. I think one of them ended up kind of going like woo-woo meditation ayahuasca retreat in the woods kind of thing, like ended up like completely changing their whole perspective on it. It's one of those places where if you want to go, you have to send full body shots of yourself to get approved to be invited, because only the hottest people are allowed to go to these parties. So, you know, that's why it's all skinny white women. Who sees Eyes Wide Shut and is like, ah, yes, I feel inspired. Let's do that on purpose. I mean, I feel like if you grew up in that era when there weren't very many other pieces of representation for kink online, I could see how you would take that and be like, oh, like there'd be something appealing in that you'd want to explore more. But in today's modern society, I think trying to go back to that, 20, almost 30 years later and be like, that's the aesthetic we want to go for, is a little hacky, is frankly the word that comes to mind. I'm suddenly extremely quiet. Oh. Looks like my voice. Maybe that was just I was trying to read something. That's probably why. Okay, so let's get into some questions. Thank you all for your patience with me just doing my thing, just ranting about whatever I feel like. But, you know, I still like giving people updates. I sound fine? Okay, maybe that was just like a little blip for a second. I'll keep an eye on it just in case. You know, it's possible something with a wire could be funky. All different things are possible when it comes to live streaming is operated by one individual person. I'm actually not in... I'm flattered. I'm definitely not in like the top 1% of YouTubers. I actually, well, maybe like from subscriber count, sure. I usually get like a B rating. I am in the top 2,000 of creators in the United States. So like that's big. I am in the top 2,000 for the United States. In terms of just overall subscribers, I'm actually 2,069th. Well, you could just, the jokes write themselves, don't they? And then for education, I'm 1,368th. So I'm definitely not anywhere near the top by any means, but I definitely, I'm not as small as I think I am sometimes. Yeah, everyone's nice, exactly. But like there is such a big gap that I think maybe people don't realize. Like when you start to get like, there's a ton of channels that have like no subscribers at all, that have like 0 to like 100 subscribers, and then there's a ton of people who have between like 100,000 and the top, right, like 10 million or whatever. Like I am technically, like I am 2,000th or whatever, 2,000th. Gotta slow down to say that one properly. But then there's people who have like 1 million subscribers that are only like 500 places ahead of me. So I guess there's really not that many. That's very interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. And I really do think, I didn't say this earlier, I meant to get to this, but for me, what I would want to see for my channel, like my goal for my channel, is if I could get to like at some point in my career, which I don't really think this is possible because of how YouTube has changed in terms of like what content they promote and how they promote it, and like how people use the website. If I could get to like 350,000 subscribers, and if I could regularly get like 20K views on a video, like 25K views on a video, I would feel very successful, which is not very much. Like it's a lot for the niche I'm in. Like I consider like What's the Safe Word to be like the pinnacle of like what's possible for kink education, because they make very funny videos. They're very engaging. You don't really have to be into BDSM to enjoy them. They're a great mix of like being well produced, funny, engaging. It features a couple, which I think normally people like to engage with. So I think if I think kind of what is possible sort of where they're at, but if I could get like consistently like 25K views in a video and get over like 300,000 subscribers, I would feel very successful. And I already do feel very successful, but I think if I could do that, I would feel much more secure about my career, is how I would say that. What did you think about Chloe Roma's anti-DDLG and age play rant? Hence what's possible. I don't know who Chloe Roma is. Why is their last name a tomato? Is this a TikToker? Who is this? Is she like Chloe? Oh, this is a big channel. Uh-oh, their is at Roma Army Men's Rights. That's always, and also I think their picture looks AI generated. Okay, they have 1.6. What are their most popular videos? Because they have 1.6 million followers or subscribers, but then their videos get like my level of views, which is unusual. So what's happening there? Oh, I see. It's outrage content. She has a 2-minute long video that has 3 million views, and they pulled the Uno reverse card as part of the title. So my opinion, this just seems like the kind of person, I don't know anything about them. So please do not take any of my initial impressions as like factual or like my permanent opinion. This to me reminds me of like Just Pearly Things, where it's somebody who found success on YouTube by like shitting on women and feminism and being like a red pill woman. Like, my community is men's rights advocate. Wait, my community is anti-red pill, trans inclusive, and pro-choice, pro-LGBT, anti-manosphere. Okay, so she's an anti-manosphere men's rights advocate, but then all of her videos are about like, at what point can you say you're anti-red pill or anti-that, but then you just share all the same views? Like, if all of your videos are not about how the red pill is bad, and all your videos are about how women are terrible, and women are entitled, and women baby trap men, and the reason why your sex is not enjoyable is because it's your fault. Like, if every single one, if I can just keep scrolling, and whenever I stop, your videos are just women need a reality check, psychotic women exposed. Like, I am so confused by this content, actually. I'm more confused than when I was initially looking at this. This is fascinating. This is the kind of thing I get stuck on for like a long time. Shot around 4 videos in 2 to 3 days, edited at my own pace, then shot more, had everything shot and edited. Oh, wait. Shoot, it went off screen. I missed it. Oh, no. Edited halfway through the month. Oh, well, congratulations. Shooting that many videos in just 2 days is a lot. Like, I max out at like 4 videos just over the course of a week. I usually do 2 every day, but that's a lot. But congratulations on your channel having more success. Shirley rants on DDG and age play when it comes to age play. I mean, it kind of just seems like if it's on TikTok and it's popular, she gets mad about it. So this is the kind of person I'd really worry myself over, because they only really get engagement when they're bashing on things. Like, they don't really seem to be promoting an ideology. They don't really like a thought leader. Like, if it's somebody like Just Pearly Things or like Blair White, I worry more, because I think a lot of people go to those creators to form their opinions. This is the content creator you find when you've already been deep in it for like several months. And then but her videos aren't like, all of her videos are like 2 minutes long. Like, that's not long enough to like have a nuanced opinion about literally anything at all. I'm pretty sure she's a grifter. Yeah, this is just somebody, like, I was starting to say this, and I got thrown off by saying them saying that they're anti-manosphere. This is the kind of person who found a formula that works. It's the same thing that, like, Ariel Scarcella does, or whatever her name is. Like, she just gets mad on the internet for a short period of time for money, because other people want to watch women get mad at other women. That's what they love. They love it when a hot woman says, guess what? I'm a woman and I think women are crazy. Like, that's people pay big money and spend a lot of time looking at hot women that'll say, I'll make a brave stance. I don't like feminism. I think that single motherhood is the root of all problems in this country. Like, if somebody is willing to say that on the internet, people are just like, yes, queen. We love our scene queen who tells us that other women are garbage. Like, I mean, it's sad, honestly. Like, I like sharing my opinion online, but also, if this is the way I had to do it to make my living, I would feel very unfulfilled. Because all you're just doing is, like, you have a 2-minute long video, a minute of it is the original TikTok you're reacting to, and then another minute of it is you being like, this thing was bad. And then just round of applause for the next 45 seconds. And then a link to an OnlyFans or whatever. Like, it's not very nuanced, is it? So, I'm not worried about somebody like this. I do keep tabs when it's somebody like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Blair White, like kind of that level of person I will watch for, because they are what starts the trickle down of like other content creators that agree with their opinions will start to do or say or talk about or focus on. Tim Pool is another one. Tim Pool is, I think, maybe even more anti-kink than most of the other people are, which I find fascinating. I don't know why that is. It is the very same Ariel Scarcella that used to make clickbait lesbian content, and now all of her content is like, I, as a lesbian woman, am a conservative, and I think that these people on TikTok are annoying. That's the content. There, I've saved you watching all the videos. It is, for the last like 4 years of her career, all she does is make fun of other people. Like, it's so sad. Like, it's one thing, like, and I try when I make videos that are reacting to something, I have like a little piece of like dry skin or like flaked makeup that's like right on the edge of my vision, and I keep seeing it whenever I move my eyes. When I do reactions, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at like react content or that I am the one true reactor, but I at least try to like react to stuff that I can make into genuine education and to dispel maybe misbeliefs or to clarify about something, because especially if it's like a short video, you're not going to get the full potential level of nuance you could be getting if you were instead having an actual like more long form conversation. But I don't spend it generally trying to just be like, and this person is bad because look at their hair color. Look at how annoying they are. They're just obviously wrong because they're cringe. Like, I mean, I guess if it brings you money, like that's what your job is. You kind of got to do it because you don't really have any other option. But it's just like, the reason why I have this as a job over like an office job, like if I had stayed in my career field instead of doing YouTube full time, I'd be making like twice as much money as I currently do. I'd be working a lot. I'd be working outside the home. I'd be commuting. I'd be putting myself at a lot of risk for illnesses because I'd be working in an office because I don't think the job field I was in would have translated very well to like remote work. Like, I could have stayed in that career field and been like relatively successful. I could have done that. But instead, I stayed doing this because, and this is serious, like it is my passion. Like I want to educate people. I want to help people. I do this because I like doing this, not because I want to like make other people feel bad about themselves all the time. Like, why would you do that? Most of these dudes were ranting at me about how hard done by men are and how evil women are, and I'm just an international modern woman and how I'll hit the wall and be alone with cats. I mean, like, fine. I mean, I'd just be like, okay, fine, that's fine. I mean, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hit the wall with all of my all of my beautiful partners. How dare I? Like, oh no, I'm so worried about it. Oh, I mean, my whole life is really just about being beautiful. That sucks. Womp womp. Like, I just feel like the best way to dispel all of that is just be like, okay, that's fine. Like, just like don't react, because what they want, and this is like part of my hesitancy with like maybe getting into more like if people like fresh and fit and just pearly things and all of those people, if they start to make more content that is focused about BDSM, I'm very worried about that, because my fear is, okay, react to that, and do they just clip it and make it seem like I'm an emotional woman? Like, I feel like the way you'd handle that is just to like have either no reaction at all, or just like very gently and calmly with like nothing in your voice, no tone or anything, just being like, okay, that's your opinion. That's fine. Okay, great. I have a different view. That's acceptable. Okay, sure. We'll see who's wrong. We'll see who's wrong in the long run. Like, I feel like my response, honestly, my instinctual can response is like, that's okay. I just want everyone to be happy. I just want people to find happy relationships. That's all. That's it. Just like be very nonplussed about it. That's the word. I will get to the Q&A. I'm very sorry. I feel like I keep seeing topics, so I'm like, ooh, I want to talk about that. Snow White and the Seven Turfs. Oh my god. No. There are a lot of them, aren't there? I mean, there was something I saw from Graham Linehan, who once quote tweeted me and called me a danger to children. Uh, he said something like that. I don't know if it was in the first. He definitely made the implication that I was a danger around other people. So it's fun. Always a good time. He was having some, I don't know, it was like a live space or what it was, but he was talking with somebody else who was an avowed TERF, and they all talk about how it's ruined their lives, how it's just like made living their lives impossible, how they lost their family over it. Like, I feel very, very bad, but I mean, that's what you make your whole life about hating other people. I don't really know if you can be upset about that. Like, that's kind of, you know, if you hate people, what do you think is going to happen? All right, let's get to some questions, shall we? Absurd Falcon says, first off, thank you for your content. Would it be possible to get an explanation of what play parties are like? They fascinate me, but I have trouble thinking they aren't just sex parties. But do you feel bad about TERFs' lives being bad? Yes. As like a human being, as a person, I feel this about like fundies, like fundy content creators, TERFs. Like I as like a human being to another human being, I feel bad when they have destroyed their lives believing in something that is so filled with hatred, because at some point they're either going to die or they're going to wake up before they die and realize they've spent their whole lives hating other people and that it didn't bring them happiness or fulfillment or success in any way. And that is a very difficult thing to sit with. And maybe they don't care. Maybe I'm projecting my own sense of what I would want for my life onto other people. But I feel really bad, especially for people that get sucked into fundamentalism and they think that's the one true way of how to live your life. It sucks. It genuinely sucks. Yeah. But let's get into a description of play parties. So, play parties, I have a couple of older videos, like very, very old videos where I've talked about this, and maybe brought it up in some modern ones. I will say, just as an initial caveat, just right at the top, depending on where you live, especially if you are outside of the United States, your experience of a play party will be very different. I would say if you're talking about a public play party, the two broad most common types would be in industrial area warehouse sort of vibe. I've been just up and down the state, up and down the West Coast. That has been my most common venue I've seen, has been some kind of converted like industrial area warehouse, like big open space. You will also see events at bars. That tends to be more common in Europe, but in LA, New York, other big cities, even here in Portland, you do have venues that are hosted out of bars. That tends to be less common here in America just because most people have a philosophy that they don't really want to, and legally they may not be able to, mix kink and alcohol together in the same space. Local ordinances can be a very important factor for determining what your local scene is like. But usually at a play party, it'll be sort of an open venue. It won't be like Eyes Wide Shut. It's not usually super fancy, but usually some kind of like reception area. There'll be a check-in desk. There'll be like some staff members. You got checked in. Usually there's some kind of area in the space with like lockers, storage, coat racks. I've seen this done all different kinds of ways. Sometimes it's right there by the check-in place. Sometimes it's downstairs. Sometimes it's in a separate area. Sometimes they have a coat check. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have just like, you know, this is the place where everyone piles up their bags. Sometimes you have to keep it on you. That can vary a little bit. But sometimes, usually a check-in area, some kind of curtain separation area. Then you get into the play space area. There are some venues, like I know in LA, you'll have, is it Dutch doors, the ones where they can split open top and bottom? Sometimes you'll see areas where it's almost sort of like a stable, where there are like a row of rooms where they will keep the doors half closed and half open, so that way the DMs can check in on them, and then the different rooms are themed. They could be a schoolroom, a nursery, a traditional dungeon, a pet play area, a cowboy themed Wild West adventure. It runs the gamut of options there. There'll be more theme spaces. I would say usually what you're more likely to see is a very open play space where there's seating around the perimeter and or some kind of combination of like up front, towards the front, it tends to be lighter play, more seating area, casual hangout chill vibes the closer you are to the entryway. And then the further back you get, the more intense it gets. Usually there's open furniture, crosses, benches, spanking horses, places to do bondage on, mats, mattresses. Again, depending on the venue, you can see different setups for like aftercare areas. Sometimes there's not any distinct aftercare area at all. Sometimes there's like a curtained off area that's meant to be for sex or fluid play or for aftercare. Again, depends on the space. Sometimes there's not room for that available, so there's not one. Or there's an understanding that, oh, this corner of the dungeon is like the quiet area. You know, this has the mattresses in it and the bean bags or whatever. And then that's where the aftercare is generally done. Again, depends on the venue, especially if it's a venue where it's something else during the daytime, like a photography studio or a pro dom dungeon or something else. Things will be more or less permanent depending on what the venue normally is outside of being a dungeon space. So lots of open furniture. You will usually see most people at parties will be like sitting and chatting with each other, especially at first, and then it'll transition into more playing. People will like spectate from a respectful distance. Usually there's music. Usually just somebody throws on a random playlist. Not usually a whole lot of like fancy lights or anything. Most common thing you're going to see is going to be impact play and or some kind of bondage. Impact play is by far and away, at least in my experience, the most common thing you will see at a play party. You'll see spanking, flogging's very popular. Sometimes whips. Whips are generally, like, especially for a smaller space, you're not really going to see it. But some kind of impact play is usually common, with some kind of role play maybe as an accessory, like somebody in a schoolgirl outfit or a tutu or a pet play mask or some kind of other costume piece. But usually impact play is the most common thing. Then you'll also see bondage. Usually things like rope bondage. Sometimes you'll see other things, especially for like seasonal stuff. People will do like Christmas present wrapping or saran wrap bondages becoming more popular. I'm seeing that a lot more often. So those would be the two main things you see. Different parties, obviously, different themes, gonna have different stuff at them. So you'll have parties that maybe are more for edge players or for role play or for age play in littles or for pet players or for femdoms. So if you want a specific vibe for a party, I recommend going to and trying to find a party that has that vibe. But a general dungeon night is usually going to be predominated by general impact play. Pickup play is common. That's where people will meet up that night and decide to play together that night. In terms of the makeup of the kind of people you will see go, this very much varies by the venue, especially if you live in a city that has multiple venues. Usually different demographics will kind of sort themselves into different areas depending on like what has the right vibe to it. In my experience, across the board, most people are going to, oh, thank you. Didn't get to send this last week, so here's a little holiday cheer from the Mr. and I. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Mrs. Waffles. That is very, very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hate the anti-age play dummies say that pet play doesn't resemble real animals, but age play resembles real children. That is a very bizarre distinction to make. I do have to agree with that. But yes, you will see, for in terms of ages, I would say the average age you normally see is probably like late 30s, early 40s would be more common. You see people in the 50s, 60s, obviously. You see people in the early 20s too. There tends to be a bit of a dip, at least where I've been, when you get into like the early 30s, because a lot of people leave the kink community to like start a family or try monogamy, or they get serious about their career. Like there tends to be a lot of like more serious vanilla life stuff happening in the late 20s, early 30s time period. But then when people get more settled, their kids are older, they get, you know, into a better place with their career or whatever, they then tend to go back to the community again, some of the time at least. Or you get people, that's a really common age for first divorce. I'm actually not sure what is, I know the average age for first marriage is like 28 now or something like that. Average age of first divorce in USA, what is it? 30, there you go. So 60% of all divorces involve individuals aged 25 to 39. There you go. So yeah, in the early 30s range, a lot of people are going through big life transitions. People figuring out they're not kinky, or they are kinky for the first time, and they're, again, kids, divorces, moving, big career happenings. So if you're in that age bracket, it can be a little bit difficult to find people that are in the same spot in life as you. But yeah, that's more or less what I don't really know how else to describe it. Like, I can picture it very clearly in my mind. And if I could paint you a picture of it, I would. But it's hard to give you the full sensory experience just with my words. You will definitely hear a lot of things. People love screaming. They love making noise. They love having loud orgasms. People go to play parties because they like the exhibitionist and the voyeuristic element of it. Most of the time, there is a common understanding of, you're going to have a scene distance away from somebody. You're not going to be touching other people. There's not going to be people coming in and interrupting your scene. Scene space is generally considered to be sacred. Now, if you're going to a venue that's run by swingers or it's primarily a sex party, it's going to be different there. But usually for a BDSM party, the understanding is you are on the periphery, you're outside, you don't get involved in a scene, you don't start asking questions, you don't start grabbing somebody's toys and start doing something to somebody else. If you're playing with somebody, it's because you negotiated for it to happen. Scene interruptions are generally not taken as a positive thing. So don't do it unless obviously you're a DM, and then it's your job to interrupt the scene if such a thing arises that calls for you to do that. And you'll see DMs, you'll see safety people. But you see all different body types, all different people. I see people that go to dungeons that are deaf, that are blind, that use mobility aids, that use guide dogs, guide animals. We see all different types of people, all different body types, all different ages. I think people, again, you get from freaking places like Sanctum, if I still have that up, right? People think this is like what kink is rich guys in tuxes and like young women in dresses. And genuinely, every single time I go to an event, I go to a venue, I have to reiterate this. You will see all different types of people at these play parties, all different sizes. I've seen all different, honestly, most of the people I see play at play parties, you see people that are significantly overweight. Honestly, that's a lot of the people who play at play parties. It's not and it's funny because you also see people complain about why is everyone in the BDSM community so ugly? And it's no, they just look like regular people, you asshole. What do you it is everyone's just normal. If you went to a local, just I don't know what a local chain of a grocery store is, so I won't mention any. But if you just go, not a Walmart, but just a regular, normal, local grocery store, and then you just took an average sample of the people at that grocery store at on a Saturday at noon, and you put those people in a dungeon, it would look like how a dungeon looks. You see all different types of people, all different everything, okay? Which is not to say that it is easy to be a bigger person or to have a disability or whatever. And it's easy to find a play partner under those circumstances, because it's not necessarily easy or easier. It is just a fact that they exist and they're in those spaces. I only ever see newbies show up to their first play party just like that. Yes. Or if it's a gala or a ball theme. Yeah. But yeah, generally the only people who show up wearing, the only people I've ever seen at a play party dressed up like that have been, usually it's older couples that are there for the spectating and then having sex with each other and then leaving. More the voyeurs, less the BDSM players. Or, voyeurism, exhibitionism definitely have their place in kink, but a lot of people will go to parties just to watch other people and then have sex with each other, vanilla sex, and then leave. I've definitely noticed over the course of the last couple of years since the pandemic, there has been a shift in various communities towards, I think, more of an emphasis on sex. I don't know what happened, but when things started to open up again after the pandemic, regulations started to ease, there were a lot more people showing up that had never done kink before, that were just there to have vanilla sex and then leave. And that has seemingly persisted. Now, I'm at this point in my life, I mostly go to very specific kink events. It's not my risk profile to go to most kink parties these days. I don't like the exposure. Is not for me. I like playing at home with my partners. That's mostly what I do. I love going to play parties when they're the right energy. It's just they're so commonly not, and I so commonly don't like the vibe of places I go to because now they're so much more sex focused that I just like opt to stay at home. Unless I'm going to a big place like a convention, like a big weekend retreat or something, that I love those because like there is sex, but it tends to be 10% of what's happening and not like 50%. And I'm not like anti-sex in kink. I'm not anti-sex at BDSM parties. It's just not what I want out of my BDSM experience, and so I choose to not go to places or to parties where that is mostly what's happening. Especially because there's a lot more places around here in Portland that mix alcohol in their kink spaces, and so I just like I don't know whenever I interact with anybody, like have they had anything to drink, how sober are they, like what is their intention, and so I just have not felt comfortable like doing pickup play or things like that at some of the local venues compared to other places I used to go to. But also, like, again, everything's very regional. Everything is very dependent on where you live, whether things are for profit, whether they're part of like a 501c3, if it's part of a pro-doms dungeon, if it's a swingers meetup locale. That will change things. Also, local regulations about what's legally allowed to happen in a space. Like, I've mostly been to venues here on the East Coast where things like electroplay, wax play, open flames, candles, fire, all of that is very, very tightly controlled, and fire regulations are very strict. And so you don't see things like fire play. You don't see things like wax play done. I mean, honestly, you don't even really see wax play, period. Like, people just don't do it. You'll see some electroplay because more of those toys are allowed, but you don't see that at all. Whereas I know people in New York, like I had people leave comments on my last video from a couple days ago where they were telling me like I see fire play like every week, like it's there all the time. So it really depends on where you live, what is allowed based on legal laws and regulations, because people would assume that it's the police that shuts down kink venues and kink parties. It's not. It's usually the health department. And more often than that, actually, the fire marshal. At least in my experience. People just, they're like, what do you mean I have to have a fire extinguisher if I have a party where people are going to be tied up and there's 400 people in one venue? Like, people just kind of think they can turn their, like, the studio they find on Craigslist into a play party and then like turn it into a business, and then they're like, oh wait, I have to like there's capacity, there's fire flow requirements, I have to make sure that the fucking fire escape works, I have to make sure that there's a fire extinguisher. Like, you doesn't have any point of reference for any of this. So yeah. There used to be somebody a long time ago that I knew that was very into like decorative wax play, but because the only kind of wax play you can do in venues indoors here is like with a crock pot. And also like the venues here are very small. Like there's not a lot of elbow room for like having a crock pot full of wax and then like ladling it onto somebody. There's just not enough of a splash zone for that to be a thing that happens regularly. I've seen it at a lot of private parties. I've seen it at a lot of, outdoor events, but not indoor events at like public venues. Yeah, don't fuck around with fire codes. Remember that one concert where everybody died? Yeah, literally. Like, people are very flippant, but there's a reason why these rules exist. And you can bellyache about, oh, well, it's too expensive and those rules shouldn't apply to me and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, they're laws for a reason. They keep people safe. And, like, what happens when you have some idiot that wants to do, like, I don't know, some kind of fear play scene where their partner is in bondage, and then they get out their lighter and they flick their lighter open and they're waving it around, and then oopsie, their partner squirms and then the rope catches on fire, and then that catches on the heavy curtains we got. Oh, now suddenly everything's in flames. Like, it takes so little for things to go very wrong very quickly in a scenario where there could be people in cages, there could be people tied up, there could be people that are unable to recognize what's going on very immediately because they're deep in subspace, or they're in like sensory deprivation clothing, or in a sleep sack, or like there's a bunch of things that just like deaden people's reaction time and like their ability to get to safety. And just take things seriously, okay? Like, Jesus Christ, if you ever want to open a venue, please know what the local laws and regulations are, because you really don't want your venue to be shut down, and you really don't want something bad to happen and then end up on the local news. Like, imagine that shit, right? Like, 3 injured in house fire at BDSM party. Come on. Like, why would you want that? Asked previously, but I think it was missed, how to deal with the primary partner of a person I play with exhibiting jealousy and hostility towards me. Okay. So you're playing with somebody, they have a primary partner, and that person's other partner, your metamor, is exhibiting jealousy and hostility towards me. Okay, so I would love to answer this question. Are they directly reacting this way to you, like when you are around them? Or is it you are hearing things secondarily from your partner about this other person being upset with you or dealing with jealousy? Like, are we doing a communication like V thing here where like this person is telling me that this person feels this about me? Or is it like a direct, like they're interacting with you and it's not going well? Directly approached me at an event and was really rude and weird towards me. Okay. I have a very firm boundary about this. I have had people in the past that have been very rude towards me as metamors. Usually it has been excused with, oh, they just like you. They have a crush on you. They're just intimidated by you. And I don't deal with that. Like, it's one thing if you're dealing with your own emotional stuff. Like, I get it, it's hard. Like, I've dealt with this personally, more than once. It's really tough, especially if you're used to having your like home be a nest with your partner the first couple times a new person comes around, especially if you're not really sure about that other person, you're not really sure you can trust them. I get that being disruptive, but to go up to someone on purpose at an event and then be rude, I would be very clear with your mutual partner about like, hey, I understand that, introducing a new relationship or having a new partner is tough for whoever this other partner is. However, they were really rude to me. That made me very uncomfortable. And I don't want that to continue to happen. Here's what I'm going to do if that happens in the future. Because you can't control other people's behavior. And boundaries are not about controlling other people's behavior to begin with. So I really recommend not saying things like, you have to change this or else, or you have to talk to them about this. You can politely suggest, if you don't know this is happening, I recommend you talk to her about it. Can you, like, just for you, I'm sure your mutual partner would probably want to know, especially if their partner is, like, if their partner has been saying they're struggling but they're dealing with it, or if they've been saying, like, oh, I'm totally fine, but they're not really, here's some evidence of that. That's information that's worth having for them. But I would come up with some kind of plan for yourself for dealing with that. For me, my first line is like, if somebody is coming up to me and they're hostile and they don't really seem to like me, I would just say, hey, I don't want to have this, I can't have this conversation right now. Have a great party though. Talk to you later. And just remove yourself. Just take yourself out of the situation. Don't try to make them like you. This is very hard. But if somebody is dealing with jealousy, there is basically nothing you can do or say that's really going to help them, because they got to deal with their own stuff on their own. Just be polite. Don't force the interaction. Remove yourself from it. You have to treat it like you're, and this isn't to say that like metamors are animals or anything, but we teach people how they are allowed to treat us. This is something that if you can do it early will be very, very good for you versus doing it in 6 months or several years or at some point in the future. If you demonstrate that you'll remove yourself from a conversation when you are not feeling respected, because you have the option to do that. You're just at a party, just at an event. You're not like sitting on a plane together. You're not like, there's not, you have a very free option most of the time, I imagine, to be able to leave. So exercise that. Show them that you will not tolerate their gruff behavior or their rudeness towards you. That you just don't want to be around that. That will it'll probably make them act up more at first, but eventually, with enough consistency, the intention is that behavior will extinguish itself if they can handle the jealousy, and they will get over it, and they will be nice to you or they won't be nice because they're a mean person and that's just how they are. And they will just keep trying to poke different things. In which case, disengage, this is the advice I've gotten that has been very helpful for me. You have to be a broken record. If you compromise, all you're doing is, you're not doing boundary setting, you're doing intermittent reinforcement. This is very difficult. I struggle with this because I am the kind of person, at least historically in my life, where if somebody does something once, I'll say no. Twice, I'll say no. 3 times, I'll say no. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 8 times, 10 times. I feel pressure to cave. I feel pressure to change my opinion. I feel pressure to acquiesce to their behavior. And I have to get better at just myself, just being consistent. So be a broken record, remove yourself from that scenario, don't engage with it. Be polite, don't be rude back, don't reflect their reactivity, but just say, hey, this isn't really the kind of conversation I want to be in. Talk to you later. And like, there are more concrete things you can do with boundary setting. I'm not an expert at setting boundaries, so I will not, give advice as far as that goes. This is something I would definitely encourage you to research more and brainstorm about more if you can, because obviously you're going to be in scenarios where you can't always leave easily, or it would be a very big disturbance and seem like a very big deal to be able to leave. In which case, maybe you go more towards things like changing the conversation, not engaging with them, turning towards another person and having a conversation with them instead. Try to redirect as opposed to leave, because that is a little bit easier to handle if you're like, if you're all going out to dinner together, if you're doing like a triad dinner date, you can't really just you can excuse yourself to the bathroom, give them a second to compose themselves and maybe regulate a little bit. But don't just like storming off and leaving would maybe seem a little bit too extreme. Thank you for your opinion info. I will apply it. That would be a good place to start. Definitely check in. If you can give me updates, I would love to help more, just to see, like, maybe test to see if that works. Because sometimes all it really takes is somebody who is maybe in their feelings, not really realizing what they're doing, unintentionally like projecting in their voice and manner of speaking that they're feeling jealous and insecure. Sometimes just having somebody react to them that way will be enough to like get them to come to their senses and be like, oh, I really shouldn't behave like that. I don't want to leave that kind of impression with that person. I'm going to try harder next time to be better. Or honestly, like if what they're dealing with is they are dealing with possessiveness over your mutual partner and they're not handling that, that's not your job to fix. That's between them and your mutual partner. So there's nothing really you can do about that. Just be polite, but don't engage if they're being rude. Yeah. It's often rooted in insecurity. Jealousy comes from so many different places. And I don't want to say that, oh, jealousy was always caused by this, because it's like fear of loss, fear of abandonment, envy for what somebody else has with somebody else. Like jealousy, this is not an original thought. This has been described in many, many books about polyamory. Jealousy is a cover for other emotions usually, especially fear, anxiety, envy. That tends to be more of the wheelhouse, but yeah. I'm really interested in your response to a tattoo question. I will do that one. And then I am going to go back up again in the search history and get to some earlier questions if I can. How do I deal with thinking I'd be okay with something and then find out that I wasn't? Oh, this is definitely an important question. Yeah, this is worth getting to. I told my sir I was okay with him having control of what tattoos I do and don't get, and today I was supposed to get a tattoo, but I canceled the appointment because I just couldn't see myself with that tattoo. Now I feel like I've let him down and I feel ashamed I couldn't go through with it. I am somebody where my personal sense of expression is very important to me. My personal aesthetic, how I express myself is very important to me, especially because of how that was regulated when I was growing up. And so I don't go there with my partners. At some point in the future, if I found somebody who in themselves had a strong sense of style and could like color match and put together cool outfits, like if I could trust somebody else's personal sense of aesthetic to be able to guide me, I would feel more comfortable in that. But frankly, with the kinds of people I tend to date, their brains are not really wired to care about that very much. And so if it was up to them, I'd be wearing stuff that to me would look very hideous and be embarrassing, and it would verge into like a humiliation play territory I'm not really interested in getting into, So I, for myself, definitely have a boundary there. I get that. I think it's very common, especially in power exchange, to like the idea of something. And then when you do it or get close to doing it, like I wouldn't call it chickening out, but you're having a realization. You're like, oh, this actually isn't something that works for me. In which case, the solution, and as much as you would want to go and feel ashamed and feel put down about it, because you're not living up to your expectations, and I think it's fair to feel disappointment when your expectations and reality don't meet, but that's different than beating yourself up about it. That's different than like just going through a mental cycle of like, I should be able to do this and I'm not doing it and therefore I'm bad and like kink isn't for me and I'm not really a submissive and then spiraling and getting way off into the weeds with that. Instead, and this seems a little fluffy, but I genuinely think reframing this thought would be helpful. I would reframe it from I'm ashamed that I couldn't do what I wanted to do to I'm glad I learned this boundary now before it went too far. So now you know that you have, or at least for now, right, you have a soft limit here, maybe, where you're open to it maybe at some point in the future, but for now, we're not really going to go there quite yet. So you're grateful that you learned a limit. And learning a limit can suck, right? Like I've learned plenty of limits during play for not very fun reasons. And I'm like, no, I have that going forward as a solid piece of information to steer my kink career with. So you can keep it as sort of a silver lining, but obviously I think it's worth explaining to your partner in a lot of detail and having that open conversation where I don't know how important this is to them, if this is something that they're just sort of, they were willing to do, if this is like a core part of their kink. Yeah, so and never get a name tattooed. I mean, sure, like maybe it's not just we're going to eliminate all. This is what I find people tend to do. This really bothers me. Doms, please don't do this. If a submissive isn't able to do something or finds a limit around something, dominants have a tendency to have sort of like, I'm going to take my ball and go home mentality of now they blow up the boundary to be like 10 times bigger than it really is. And it kind of comes across like you're punishing your submissive for not being able to instantaneously do what you wanted them to do. And it's not fair. Like, for example, if you went from, okay, I actually have a boundary on you choosing my tattoos, that suddenly turns into, well, then I can't choose anything that's related to your body, your personal appearance. And it's like, no, I didn't say that. It's like, no, you haven't earned it yet. And it's like, doms can be emotionally reactive. They're not immune to feelings. And this is how it can come out sometimes. Sometimes it can be wise to take a step back. But there's a difference between being emotionally reactive and saying, well, then fine, we're not doing any of this anymore. And being like, okay, well, it sounds like it's a good idea to step back and maybe evaluate this sphere of control in the relationship and really try to tune in on what feels good for both of us. So different ways of doing that. Try to figure out, if you're going to have that approach, which one you're going with. If you're having the first one where you're being emotionally reactive, I recommend slowing down and maybe not going down that pathway. But I think it's worthwhile to have a conversation with your partner where you talk about like, why did you cancel the appointment? Why is this tattoo like bringing up this feeling for you? Maybe it's the location or the size of the tattoo or the design. Maybe what you want is maybe you want or need more collaboration in the design. Maybe you'd feel more comfortable starting with like a smaller design, or maybe something that's part of an existing tattoo you already have that you know you like. Or maybe you want to be able to pick the artist, but then they pick the design. Like there's a million ways to compromise around this, or maybe if you want to, you could work towards having your partner have a say in your tattoo journey, but it doesn't have to be all the way there, right? Like there could be more collaboration and more egalitarian elements to it that help you both get to where you want, but it's not starting in that place. Or it could also be maybe you have an artist you really like and they put out that they're doing some flash tattoos, and you have a bunch of tattoos that you really like the look of, and you go to your partner and say, sir, I'd like you to pick between these options on this sheet. I will go with whatever you pick. So it's a way to maintain a higher level of autonomy while I think also getting to that feeling of submission that you want to have. Or maybe, again, it's worth it to just kind of rein all of that back in on. Maybe you start with like a temporary tattoo, or they draw on you, or you get henna, or there's so many options these days. You can really do a lot of different things. But getting a tattoo is a really, really, really big thing. So if that's not where your relationship is at, like, do not feel bad about it. That's like, I mean, you can get tattoo removal. Depending on the colors, it's more or less easy to remove. But that is it should be counted as permanent, because to remove it is typically very expensive and time consuming. So if you're not there yet. That's totally fine. Totally fine. You don't ever have to be there, for the record. I don't think I'm ever going to be in a place in any relationship where I'm letting my partner choose and have complete control over a tattoo in my body. Like, I just can't see that happening. I could maybe, like, if we were agreeing on, like, maybe like an ownership thing or like a small design, like, I would be like, okay, if you wanted to pick a design and it was like the size of a quarter or smaller, like, okay, as like a sign of ownership or a marking, that would be fine with me. But if it was like, you get to pick any tattoo you want of any size, anywhere on my body, any color, from anyone ever, I'm gonna have to say no to that, probably. I don't have to say no, especially because most people I know don't like have extensive tattoo experience. Tattoos and permanent modifications are on a layer above the dynamic and on the level of the core of me as a person. Yeah, like permanent, especially if like implants are like a big thing, or like facial surgeries, those are all really big. And I know people that get to that level in their dynamic, but it's not an overnight thing. Adam Sandler's face back tattoo. Is that the one that's like the shitty dragon? Who's the one who has, is that Ben? Somebody in Hollywood has like a shitty dragon tattoo, right? It's like really awful. Who is that? Ben Stiller? Who am I thinking of? I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Let me see. Maybe it is Adam Sandler. That would be very funny if it was him. Oh, no, you're saying it would be a tattoo of Adam Sandler's face. I would chop off a part of my body. No, I would get laser tattoo removal. But then if that didn't work, I'd chop off a part of my body. There was no options for removal and cover up. I loathe Adam Sandler movies. I've been forced to watch many of them, and I can think of about a total combined like 10 minutes of them were like worth watching and were actually funny. Sorry to all of the Adam Sandler fans. It's just not my sense of humor. It's Devo from Jackass who has a tattoo of his own face on his back. Oh my god. Yeah, laser tattoo removal should not be considered permanent at all. Like or laser tattoo removal should not be considered a guarantee. It depends on so many factors, and yeah, it will leave some kind of ghost marking on your skin, as somebody else already said. Oh my gosh. Okay, so tattoos are a big deal, and I hope that helped you get through that, but I would not feel ashamed. I don't think that you should be ashamed about it. I think it's good you learned what a limit is, and this will happen, like, in general, in power. This is why I advocate over and over again when I make videos talking about punishments and contracts and all of that. Especially, I would consider the first 2 years of your dynamic to be a very fluid time for most people, especially if you have no previous experience doing power exchange. You're going to be learning a lot about each other, about yourself, about the community, about different options for play and styles and aesthetic, and like maybe monogamy versus polyamory, or having a family, or like there's so many things that are really big that could change and you could find out about yourself or the other person, that I wouldn't consider it to be anything set in stone for at least the first like 2 years. It's really the first 2 years of dating, right? Like everyone says like, oh, like before you decide to get married, you should be like dating for at least 2 years. I sort of like, that's not a set in stone, like forever benchmark by any means, but I think it's worthwhile to keep that kind of thing in mind as a potential, just good guidepost to have, because there are hundreds of things, thousands of things you could do within Kink and Power You're always going to be discovering new things. And if you're not open to the possibilities, especially things changing, you are going to be in for disappointment. There are going to be things that you do in a relationship that do not feel as good as you were expecting them to. There are going to be things that you thought you wouldn't like that you really like. There are going to be things that you do for a while that you like at first and then don't like over time. Like if you start out like maybe having lower obligations at the office, you work 40 hours a week, maybe it's really easy to maintain your level of obligation you have in your power relationship. And then you move, you have a longer commute, you start working 60 hours a week because you're trying to get a promotion. Your ability to make time for your other kink obligations, well, not your job isn't a kink, but your kink obligations or things at home, that's going to change. So leave room for flexibility and growth. I think if you're always like treating your relationship as like everything on this list has to be instantly achievable and done, and then you get punished if you aren't able to meet those expectations without any other context, like that's going to, I think, breed bad things in the relationship, and that's going to cause resentment to build up. It's going to cause people to not want to talk about what's generally going on for them, and I think that is a negative more than it's a positive. Something about French poodles. What? I used to very strongly dislike poodles, and then I realized they come in a big size, and then I liked them. I don't like little teeny tiny poodles. Actually, if they're like the little poodles where like their hair is like fully grown out, like sort of like a Japanese style haircut on a poodle, I do like those. But I don't think I mesh with the poodle personality. I just need like 10 of this dog. If I could just have 10 of Bandit, I wouldn't do anything else in my life, honestly. I'd just stare at her all day. That would be my whole job. No, I'm just kidding. I do other things, but that would be something I would consider. Have you seen the teacup Pomeranian? I have seen teacup Pomeranians in general, which is really just to say a premature born Pomeranian that is at a dangerously small size. I don't believe in breeding like teeny tiny animals. I used to find that cute until I realized where they came from, and then it wasn't cute anymore. I like standard poodles, yeah. I like standard poodles and the in-between size. There's a word, I forget what it is. There's an M, I think. Not a merle. That's a color. It's not just a medium poodle. There's another. Oh, Moyen. Moyen, that's what it is. I like the Moyen and like standard size poodles. Like they have so much attitude. I don't think I have enough attitude to own a dog like a poodle, to be honest. But they all bark. Like they're especially standard. We lived near standard poodles for a long time, and they've barked all the time, all day long. I don't really think. I mean, Pomeranians also have a reputation for barking. So what does that mean? I think they'd be too high energy for me, though. I need like a chill dog. Like daily walk is fine. Having to play with a dog actively for like an hour plus every day, I don't think I have time for. But like they can be very, especially I like gray poodles. I think gray poodles look very cute. There's little cute little faces. Anyways, that's the dog update that everyone was obviously longing for. Like the dream you had a year or two ago where you had a bunch of bands. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And like they were all like my dog, but they also like weren't my dog. Yeah. I heard like, yeah. I have had like a dream like that recently too, where there was a dog that looked very similar to my dog that I like adopted, but it wasn't my dog. It was very confusing. Oh no, why are we talking about a daily what are we talking about with the Daily Wire? What happened? I know they came out with they have a kids thing now where they made a Bluey ripoff. What'd they do? I love that. I grew up with a Sheltie that was super chill. He just sat in a recliner and watched TV. I love it. Old man energy coming from a dog. That's very cute. I don't know any French at all. So I have no point of reference for that, but thank you. Let's see what's happening. Give me 1 second. Trying to find where I am in the chat. I think I will have missed. Actually, Restream lets me scroll back way farther than YouTube seems to. So if you asked a question earlier, I definitely recommend asking it now because we have 15 minutes left. And I'm going to try to speed through a couple. As a Floridian, my first thought was if you go to a Publix, yes. Oh, I loved Publix as a kid. I was like, I don't know. That was like the first brand I ever liked was Publix. I don't know why. I just was really, I think it was, they used to have like a gator mascot or something. I was like really into gators when I lived in Florida. I really, Publix, yeah. Or like what's one that's not where I live? Like a Ralph's. Like if you go into a Ralph's, who do you see? If you go into what's one from the East Coast? I'll see all the ones I know from the East Coast are like, well, that's a fancy one though. Because I could say go to Wegmans, but like Wegmans is a fancy one. It's like these people view Kinky's people's purpose as being hot for them. Yes. It's a very like, I want people to be present and be hot. I'm so happy my community is run by old people. I mean, it's certainly better than like 20-somethings being like, you know what? Let's make something that's basically like a porn set. I very rarely see sex at the parties I go to. Usually it's me and usually it's CNC. It's like, it's me. I'm the one doing the sex at parties. Yeah, it's very, it depends on the venue. I've just noticed around here it's changed a lot. I don't know, like, if maybe just the parties I've been to or if it's like the people in the scene here. But that used to be how it was. For a long time, you would maybe see like a blowjob for like a power exchange situation. Or like if it was like a CNC type thing. But now it's just like regular vanilla sex. Like just like not kinky in this. I mean, mentally it could be very kinky, but not visually in any way kinky at least. Oh, Vaughn's and Albertsons. I guess Albertsons is pretty nationally known. I would also prefer to play at home instead of at a party too, unless I really want it, regardless of how much or how little sex is involved. I do like the energy of a play party, but then you have to deal with people, and that's hard. That's a fact. So many doms hate rules. I mean, maybe that's why you saying like people don't obey the law because they're doms and like rules don't apply to me. Honestly, not a bad theory. What's the most unsafe thing you've seen that started small and unassuming? I missed a bit. Sorry, this is a repeat. This is not a repeat. What's the most unsafe thing you've seen that started small? It's a very... I feel like normally it's been stuff involving impact play. Because people, if you're not in the community, I think people assume that impact play is very dangerous most of the time. Like they assume, oh, like isn't like flogging, isn't whipping really dangerous? Like, is that really like painful and bad for you? And so people are very cautious from the outside about impact play because it seems really scary and dangerous. And then you get into the scene and you learn about how to do impact play and you're like, oh, actually it's not really that risky. Not really that risky. Very important way of phrasing that. Very, very important way of phrasing that. So you have people that like, oh, they think, oh, well, impact play, actually it's not really that, like nothing bad ever really happens. Nobody ever really gets hurt. You don't really hear about any crazy stories involving impact play. And then people get very lazy with their amount of caution or education and they just kind of wing it and they don't really think about what they're doing in a lot of detail and then they just go for it and then somebody ends up getting a horrific infection or somebody gets hurt or like somebody ends up with, you know, a torn ligament or something. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But when people get injured from getting wild and wacky with it, because they assume they kind of have this false sense of security because they go, oh, well, like, I flogged a bunch before and that's safe, and I've spanked a bunch before and that's safe, and then I've paddled a bunch before and that's also safe, and so they kind of just feel like they can fully relax because nothing bad has happened yet, and then it ends up being very dangerous. But I would say, in terms of literal size, the thing that I've heard of, this isn't something I've witnessed, but I've heard of this happening, because it's about fire play. I heard of somebody that was doing a fire cupping scene that went very badly. My memory of this is very fuzzy, so I'm basically inventing a new story at this point. I'm not trying to say that this is the exact thing that I remember. I've heard about it a long time ago now. Not trying to like retell the exact details by any means, but it was somebody who was doing a fire play thing, and I think what they had done is they were starting a fire play thing, and they had pre-filled all of the cups they were going to use with alcohol, and then all of that, like, something happened where everything got lit on fire, and like there was actually like a pretty major fire that ended up happening, and people ended up with some pretty severe burns as a result of this. It was something somebody had done a lot. They'd done fire play like before, and they had used a technique that they'd used before, and it went from one tiny little cup suddenly big burns. So fire play, like, honestly, anything involving fire probably is, starts out, oh, it's just a little candle flame. How much danger could it cause? And then, something that's causing a lot of danger. Somebody broke my rib with impact play and then told me it was impossible. Man, I'm in the ER, pretty sure. That is, like, to not act like, if you are getting medical attention, that is insane. I shouldn't say that. It is wild to me that they would just be like, that's not happening though. That can't happen. Like, especially the lower ribs, like, you can hurt those. They're very damageable. There's a reason why you're supposed to stay in certain body areas, and it's because you can damage internal parts of your body. It's relatively rare compared to the number of times that people engage in play like this, but it does happen. I've heard of plenty of people that have gotten like shoulder dislocations, other joint injuries because of like bondage, for example. It happens. Absolutely does. Please, not the kidney whipping story. I have kidney disease, and every time I hear it, I cringe like a guy seeing another guy get hit in the nuts. I will not share any story about kidney impact play. That's just a known thing. People, because people say it's not as dangerous as people assume it is. And, like, yeah, like, it's not like you touch the kidneys once and then you keel over and you die. Like, it's not, there is, depending on if you do have, like, a kidney issue or, like, other, like, would it be the renal system? You have issues involving your kidneys. Yeah. Or if you have one kidney, maybe don't risk it. But people get a sense of comfort because they get told it's really dangerous. And then they get told, well, it's not actually really that dangerous. And they go, great, I can do anything. And then they just whoop, and it's like, no, we took the wrong lesson away from this. Like, oh, God. So just like there's I tend to fall more on the side of being overly cautious. Like, I got in an argument in an old comment, actually, like last week. I had done a video, actually it was my video on figging. I made a video on figging, and there was an old comment that I had responded to where somebody was like, oh, what about if you're trying to retrieve a lost like piece of ginger from figging? Couldn't you just use an enema or a douche? And I was like, well, if it's in the vagina, there's not really a reason to douche because it can't really go anywhere else. It's just in the vagina. Like, it's like you just scoop it out. Like, that's fine. But with something being lost in your butt, I basically told them to, like, I wouldn't advise using an enema unless you were for some reason told to by a medical provider. And the phrase I used was, and this was overzealous, that it could risk shooting the lost piece of ginger further into your colon. And I thought that was a bad idea. And somebody was like, LOL, that would never happen. You clearly don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, well, when it comes to foreign objects lost in the rectum, I could find zero medical information that ever recommended using an enema or using some kind of like anything else other than just going to the ER. Basically, no one was like use an enema to retrieve a lost object. That was never a good idea. I couldn't find any definitive evidence that said why that was a bad idea. My intuitive understanding is like, well, when you have something that gets into your butt, like generally speaking, it gets sucked up farther. And you don't really want that to happen. And so flooding your body with water, like it wouldn't necessarily guarantee the outcome you're trying to create. It would probably just end up making things worse. And so I don't recommend using an enema to try and retrieve a lost piece of ginger. Maybe referring to it as shooting it deeper into the colon was a bad thing, like a bad way of phrasing that. But no medical providers recommend using an enema for a lost object in your rectum. So I'm not gonna tell somebody that's not a bad idea. It's just not a good idea. You know, like, don't recommend that. There's negative pressure in your anus. Oh, is that why? Is that why it's because it's a negative pressure? Oh, that would actually, I looked for a reason why. I'm like, why is it that your rectum and then your anal cavity, rectum, and then colon, why is there a tendency for things to get sucked up? And it's because of the negative pressure. Is that why? I looked, I tried to find an answer for that. Like, oh my God. Finally, I know why. That's been bothering me. I tried really hard to look for that. It's not a good idea, so it's a neutral bad idea. I stick with the line, and I edited my original comment to reflect this. I just was like, that is not recommended by medical providers, so I would not endorse you doing that. That's basically what I ended up saying. People thinking vaginas are like colons are hilarious, like depressing. I mean, it's maybe good that they know that they're not part of the same system. That's how little I expect out of people that have been educated by the modern education system, or any education system, really. Like, unless you've literally gone to medical school to study the reproductive system specifically, I would not be surprised that you would know this information. It's not something that I expect people to just know. Don't mess with the rectum if you don't know what you're doing. That is generally a good line, yeah. Generally a good line to have is do not mess with it. Any advice on non-sexual primal play and lifestyle? A lot. I have a Patreon video about it, and I really liked that. I thought it was a good video. I did. I remember to do this. I made a video for the kink bundle this past year that was all about primal play. And I've been meaning to put that on my Patreon as well for patrons. And that'll be a good little early Christmas present for y'all. I'll put that up there. Non-sexual primal play. I have done plenty of sexual and non-sexual primal play. Any advice? It depends on what you want to do with it. I've never done it as a lifestyle thing. I don't really know how you would do it as a lifestyle thing. I gotta be honest. Like on a 24/7 basis. But as far as advice on a non-sexual basis, rough body play, wrestling techniques, pressure points, joint locks, learning safer breath control techniques, those can all be very fun. Hair pulling techniques, using nails, claws, deep tissue massage, tons of things you can learn and then use in your primal play. Tons of things. So body manipulation in general, whatever flavor that you like doing, very good to learn about. And then just in general, communication is key. Having very clear boundaries is key. Going slowly. Generally in my relationships involving primal play that have been successful, it started out very slow and then ramped up over time. We didn't just go 0 to 100, suddenly I'm getting fucking suplexed off the bed or whatever. I don't even know what a suplex is. That did not end up happening. It very much worked up slowly over time, feeling each other out, because for me, primal play is very much about vulnerability and emotional connection. So building up the sense of emotional vulnerability and trust in that relationship is part of what contributes to primal play, to be able to get to the point of having more physical interactions with things like wrestling, pressure points, etc. So, yeah. So that would be what I would look into if you want to maybe get some new techniques under your belt if that's something that you were interested in doing. And then other advice for non-sexual primal play. I really feel like where people go wrong with primal play is they do too much too soon, and they're worried about talking about it. They think that talking about it will ruin the mood. I can tell you, based on personal experience, time and time again, for like almost a decade of my entire life, I don't think that primal play is ruined by talking about it first or having clear communication before and after. Depending on the person I'm playing with, and like if we're playing in an explicitly kink context where we're setting up a scene versus maybe like a natural like emotional thing from like cuddling on the couch or something, whatever. If we're doing something that's more explicitly BDSM where there are going to be like it's more pain focused, it's more like there's going to be more impact play, then that is much more particularly talked about ahead of time. But at least there will always be a debrief afterwards at some point about like, hey, last time I really liked this, I didn't like this, I would want more of this. Use your words. No, counterintuitive for primal play. You can decide that using your words means growling a certain way. You can decide that before the scene if you want to. Like, grunt once for no, grunt twice for yes. Grunt 3 times for more, please. Like, there are ways to establish these systems of communication beforehand, or have very thorough communication beforehand and just be with a partner you trust. But yeah. I bruised just for massaging my joints too hard. Man, that's like not a bad problem to have in the kink community at all. There are very jealous people out there listening to that. I do not have any content about trauma and kink. The closest thing I have to that would be the video I did on self-harm and masochism, because I'm not a mental health provider, I'm not a therapist, I'm not licensed or in any way professional able to talk about that in detail. I think a lot of my content kind of vaguely touches on like being aware of trauma, but no, I don't have anything about that specifically on trauma and kink. I'd love to talk to a professional about that in some more detail at some point. It just hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's lost. I was into non-monogamy since always. Now I'm tired. The world doesn't want me to, but now when I'm dating, people reject me because I'm so used to being upfront and hiding anything. Oh, that is, yeah. People didn't like my past. When should I tell them? My instinctual gut response is like, I wouldn't have time to deal with people that are going to be judgmental about my past because, oh, you were like, the people think polyamory and they think, oh, you were like loose and you slept around and you were a slut. And like anyone who would think that, I do not have energy for whatsoever. I don't want to be around a person like that. So I would be very upfront and I would just be like, listen, this is who I am. I used to be polyamorous. I'm pursuing monogamy now. But a lot of monogamous people have simply not had to deal with their jealousy in literally any way, shape, or form. And so even just knowing that somebody had pleasurable sex at all with anyone else ever in the past will set people off sometimes, which is very sad. So I think that if you're gonna experience the rejection for that, it's better to experience it early versus like after date 3 when you finally get around to talking about it. Because I think it's going to probably hurt more once you've started to develop more of an emotional attachment. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to, like, on a dating profile, be like, I used to be polyamorous, but now I'm monogamous. Because that might end up attracting the wrong kind of person that does think, like, poly equals sleeping around. But I would definitely bring it up early, like, if they ask about, like, oh, like, when was your last relationship? Or how long have you been on the dating market for? I don't know what monogamous people talk about on first dates. Is that a question that comes up? I don't know. But, you know, if somebody asks about like an ex or like what you're, you know, what are you looking for now? Like, what's your experience been like? I would bring it up then. Bring it up soon. Minimize the pain from removing that Band-Aid. But it sucks, right? Like, I want to validate. It fucking sucks. People are judgmental. People are cruel. People are rude. People think that they have the absolute truth of existence and, you know, that their way is best and everyone else is gross and wrong. And it sucks. It's very bad. But yeah. But you will find someone. There are people out there. I promise you there are people out there that genuinely don't give a crap if they are polyamorous or monogamous or what your history is. And those are the people that are worth waiting for. Because especially, like, I'm not sure how old you are, but, like, I get it if you're, like, 20 like, and you're learning how to be an adult still. You're learning about adult relationships. You don't necessarily have a ton of experience. I get having anxiety about, like, how many people have they slept with, and have they liked anyone, and have they been in love before, and like, I get that. But if you're, like, in your 30s, like, shouldn't we all kind of be getting down to business? Shouldn't we all just be, like, looking for people that genuinely, like, we enjoy spending time with and want to be around us? Like, what is this? Why are we giving so much oxygen to this, like, fear of, like, but what if they've liked sex with other people more than they like it with me? Like, sorry, that's life, buddy. Sorry, that's life. That's my opinion. I would love to update my merch store, actually, but that's on my to-do list of, like, making my content better, is having monogamous in this economy, truly. I don't know what monogamous people do. LOL, so many years away. Yeah, I have no idea. Like, I feel like people would talk about that on a first date. But I also feel like monogamous people, like, avoid talking about sex. Especially if they're vanilla monogamous. I feel like they avoid talking about sex until they're naked. I feel like people, this is not true of all monogamous people, but I really feel like a lot of people are conditioned to, like, don't talk about sex, don't ruin it, don't ruin the moment, and then they don't mention it until, like, you're already naked and in their apartment, and then they talk about it, and it's like, you're not, like, guaranteeing you're gonna have a good time by doing this. Anyways, it's 5 after. It is time for me to go, y'all. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me on this Friday night. Apparently it's a fact. Apparently, yes. People are saying it's true. But we are done for tonight. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. We will be doing more streams. We're going to be doing some extra streams over on Patreon this month. We're going to be doing 2, hopefully, movie nights. I have a poll up right now for our second movie night. As far as I have things currently planned, we will be doing a Christmas Eve stream. We're going to be doing puzzles. We're going to be playing games. We're going to be watching movies. It's going to be like a whole hangout thing if things come together the way I want them to. So if you want to see that, it's over on Patreon. It'll be a fun time, hopefully. I know holidays can be tough, so I'm trying to do more streaming and more hanging out so that way, people have a fun place to go when I know this time of year can be difficult for people, but also sharing in the joy and in the fun of the holiday season. But this is available for replay if you couldn't stay for the whole thing, so don't worry about that. Video coming out tomorrow. I believe it has scheduled for tomorrow. Video coming out tomorrow if you want to see some new content. And hopefully I will see you later. Bye.